This is Trina. Let me turn this off. Yes, I am using new software today. So thank you for your patience. I am having a ball with this. I'm doing it messy. So today I'm talking about how to use your imposter syndrome thoughts to trigger your BS detector. And I'm giving you two processes that you can use once you trigger your BS detector. All right. So it's a BS detector because those thoughts go on in our minds and we start to think that they're real, but we need to trigger the BS detector and say, you know what? That's not real. But then what do you do with them? Okay. And I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. All right. So, hey, welcome. I'm about to share about imposter thoughts, how to trigger them, and the processes that you can do with do after you trigger your BS detector. All right. This is Trina Sarecchia. I'm the energetics and transformational coach, and I help success stalkers, like coaches, entrepreneurs, leaders, regulate their nervous system so that they can quiet their inner critic, prime themselves for flow, increase their emotional intelligence, and stop the over delivery, overwork, overwhelm, exhaustion cycle so that success feels like success. And I'm also the host of the Field Guide to Awesome podcast, and I interview multi 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs. We dive into where they started, the struggles they had along the way, and the unique way they think differently that has led to their current level of success and sustained success. But today I'm talking to you about how to use your imposter syndrome to trigger your BS detector and two processes that you can use to do it. So let's jump in. All right. As we're here, heart this live. Let me know if you're watching live, hashtag replay. All right. And let me know where you're watching from. Okay. And give me a hell yes in the comments if any of this resonates with you. Okay. So first, if you are an entrepreneur, you do have a little bit of the imposter in you, and that's okay. All right. You are creating something new. You are solving a problem in a new, unique way. You are innovating, and all of that is awesome. All right. But part of blazing new trails is feeling a little bit of an imposter. All right. It's showing up in a new and different way. And we need to step into those shoes. All right. So that also means that the aspect of being an imposter, there are aspects of being an imposter that aren't supportive of being productive and feeling satisfied with your work. All of these little things pop up. All right. So a 2021 Twitter poll found that 87% of people said that they experience imposter syndrome symptoms at some point or another. 87%. All right. So likely this may be you. All right. I've experienced it. Some of the most successful people in business, in entertainment, in all areas of life have experienced imposter syndrome. Okay. So the good news is that you aren't alone, even if you feel alone. All right. That's one of the characteristics of imposter syndrome is you feel alone. You think, no, people don't know that I don't belong here. All right. So you feel alone. You can isolate yourself because it's hard to ask for help. All right. So imposter syndrome shows up in a few ways. All right. And some of them include feeling stuck in overwhelm, brain fog, inaction. Okay. These are like little aspects of us self-sabotaging ourselves. All right. And not showing up. So how many of you may have, when you start feeling the imposter syndrome pop up, all of a sudden start to hide, drop out of the limelight, even though, things are possible, it might take a little bit of effort, but you could do it, but you drop out of the limelight and you hide. I've done it. All right. This is common. All right. Perfectionism. All right. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I think I will always be a recovering perfectionist. Over delivering, because we're worried about just doing what we're supposed to do isn't enough. All right. And that we need to over deliver, that we need to give more and more and more just to be worthy. All right. And know that you are worthy just as you are. All right. Overthinking. All right. Just thinking and thinking and thinking and doubting yourself and overthinking some more and making things more complex than they need to be. All right. Things don't need to be super complex. Sometimes they can be simple. Sometimes they can be easy. All right. But when you're stuck in imposter syndrome, you're over delivering, you're overthinking, and you are mind reading. All right. You're putting your thoughts about yourself, your own concept of self worth, your own stresses and anxieties and self judgments in the minds of other people when they're not thinking it. All right. Putting your thoughts about your self worth in others' heads. All right. You've no idea what they're actually thinking. You don't know until you ask them or until they tell you. All right. So, and feeling and thinking that someone is going to find out. All right. Somebody's going to find out that you're not as great as they thought you were, and that you don't belong at the current level that you're at in your business, in your career, wherever that is. Okay. All right. And so when that happens, there's shame, there's embarrassment. All right. None of that feels good. I'm talking about a lot of really hard stuff here. All right. So it's okay. I'm just calling these things out because sometimes we don't think that we have imposter syndrome. Sometimes we really think that we don't belong where we are. Okay. You really believe this stuff. So I'm calling it out. All right. And because when we're in this state, we don't feel like we're able to ask for help. All right. And you feel like you have to do it all yourself, that you have to make things work on your own. All right. When you look at the truly the successful, when you see like super successful people, the big names, they have people that they ask for help. They have people that they lean on. They have people that they use for mentoring. All right. And so you get to ask for help. Don't go it alone. All right. I'm encouraging you not to do it alone. All right. Don't self-isolate. All right. This is a form of self-sabotage. It's the self-isolation, is the hiding, not being able to do it on your own. And if you've ever heard the saying, it's not about the how, it's about the who. It's not about how you're going to do it. It's about who you can ask for help. It's who you can reach out to for advice. All right. And so at its worst, imposter syndrome can feel like helplessness. All right. It can feel like overwhelm and exhaustion and swirling negative thoughts. All right. I've experienced this. I know what it's like. You're not alone. All right. Feelings of inadequacy, worry about the future. None of this feels good and none of this is satisfying. All right. None of this is. So, how do you internalize your own sense of success? All right. This is the challenging part because all of the evidence is right there in front of you. You're not looking at the actual correct evidence. All right. You're looking at the evidence against what you want instead of the evidence for. All right. We're going to talk a little bit with the brain science about why that is. All right. So you've seen the memes telling you that it is as easy as changing your beliefs. Just believe. And, they aren't wrong. They're just jumping the gun. All right. If it was as easy as believing, if we could just like flip that switch, like right now, we could change our beliefs quick, fast, with no effort, and there'd be no problem. Am I right? So why is it so hard? We're going to be talking about that. And the short answer is Our brains. Our brains are both the problem and the solution. All right. Our brains evolved first to avoid pain and death. All right. And so imposter syndrome, failure, all of that feels like death in the modern day. Okay. And the second evolutionary step of our brain is to move towards pleasure. And this is survival instinct. All right. Our brains automated it all into habits. All right. Our brains have automated this so that we don't have to consciously think about them to execute our responses to them. All right. So because that keeps us safe. If we have to think about everything that's going to keep us safe and have us not die, then we'd be thinking and planning our steps while the tiger is sneaking up to us and munching on our legs. So our brain has automated it to make it like split second, tiger, run. All right. And so that same thing is happening to our brains when we're experiencing these stressful situations and like the imposter syndrome in our daily lives right now. Okay. So we've all been conditioned. It's built into us, built into our wetware and our hardware. All right. But also our brains are lazy. All right. The less energy used, the better. All right. So as much as we can stay fat and happy with as little energy, our brains are happy. So our brains are only about 2% of our body weight, but they use 20% of our caloric energy. All right. And so thinking takes up energy. Habit change uses up even more energy. And our brains want to conserve energy, and it has a system to support that conservation of energy. And so what is that system, Trina? I'm going to tell you. It's the reticular activating system, RAS. All right. The RAS controls our alertness, and it decides what we notice and pay attention to. It tells us what's important for us to pay attention to. And we train it by what we pay attention to, what we continuously pay attention to. So if your brain took in all the stimulation around you, if you look at the social media, it's all over. If you look, the sounds in the environment, like if you're in a noisy office setting, or if there's traffic outside, or if you have kids running around, all of that noise, all of that, the sights, the sounds, the sensations, it would overwhelm our brains. And so we have the reticular activating system, RAS, to help us manage what we pay attention to. It decides what we notice and what we pay attention to. All right. So your RAS steps in by automating your habitual thoughts, feelings, responses, as well as what catches your attention. And it shows you more of that. All right. So cue confirmation bias. All right. That it shows up in what we see on social media. It shows up what we see on the news. It shows up what we believe about a certain situation, whether or not it is true. Okay. So the bad news is, because there's good news, there's bad news. Really, though, there's just news. Is you, including your inherited trauma, conditioned your brain, all right, to respond in this way. And so as a side note, don't get wrapped up in whose fault it is. Fault doesn't matter at this point, all right? Don't get wrapped up in whose fault it is. The only thing that truly matters is what you do with what you have now. All right. So the good news is you can recondition your brain. You can recondition your RAS to focus on more supportive stimuli like thoughts, physical states, and emotions. All right. So we all know habit change tends to be hard. And habits are like well-paved highways in the brain. It's so much easier to speed down the highway when there's no obstacles, right? Your brain thinks so too. All right. So when we want to change habits, it's like we need to clear the land of trees and rocks and smooth out that path. And if you've ever commuted during road construction, it's kind of a little bit like that. All right. So changing our conditioned habits takes a continuous series of deliberate decisions to choose the new belief, emotion, actions. And you have to continuously make that new choice every single time. Okay. Sometimes you're going to fall down and you're going to stop and you're going to go back to what the conditioned habit was, the unsupportive habit. But you can always come back and choose again to do the new desired step, the new desired habit, right? So that sounds like a lot of work, right? So I want to give you right now a big compassionate shrug and hug, all right? Because it is, yes, it's a lot of work. You get to decide if it's worth that work. Do you stay as you are, even if it's uncomfortable and not satisfying? Or do you desire to commit yourself consistently, choosing to build your neurological habit highways, even if the action is uncomfortable? All right. Either way, you're going to be uncomfortable. All right. But one leads to continued dissatisfaction and the other one leads to more satisfaction. So, absolutely no judgment either way. All right. Whatever your decision is, just be aware that you're making it. And awareness is a huge first step. So that means that we need to be acutely aware of how we feel and what we think and the actions that we're taking. So we have to deliberately interrupt our autopilot, our RAS. And this is hard. Our brains don't want to do anything that's hard, uncomfortable, or scary. And there are things you can do. All right. There are things you can do, though. And I'm about to share some of them with you right now. But before we launch into this, I want you to pause and I invite you to give yourself some space, some grace, and a whole bunch of self-love and compassion. All right. So drop an emoji down below if you've paused and given yourself that gift. All right. Because we just talked about a whole lot of hard stuff. All right. And I gave you a whole bunch of brain science stuff. All right. So now we're going to talk about the steps that you can use to change your beliefs. And so the first set of steps is using the universal 5 keys. And so the first one is accepting where you are and how you're feeling. All right. Without judgment. And notice the stories that you're telling yourself. Where is there emotion attached to that? Then take another look. What are the facts? All right. Then step 2 is identify your values, including why they are important to you, what they look like when you're honoring them, and how you feel when your values are clashing with someone else's. All right. So be aware of your values. And then number 3 is visualization. This is a big one. All right. This is a big one. So our brains don't know the difference between reality and belief. It will tend to firmly accept our belief as real world fact, even though it's not. And so this means that deliberately visualizing how you desire to feel, think, and act is just as powerful. And it's not just dreaming by default. It's digging into how you imagine you'll feel, the kinds of thoughts you'll think, and see yourself acting in the way that you desire. So visualization is often used in hypnosis for performance improvement. Cleveland Clinic found that hypnosis is considered an interactive therapeutic process. Sacco said that. And for athletes, and in fact, professionals in many areas use hypnosis for performance improvement. All right. They wouldn't do anything that didn't work. All right. They wouldn't just waste their time and money. These professionals, these athletes, they're doing things that they believe in and that they actually experience results from. All right. So this means that you can use an aspect of it on your own and benefit from it. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little later on. And number 4 is taking the tiniest next step. In the case of forging new habits, this means consistently deciding to act in a way that supports your vision and your values. All right. And so you don't just take one step. We move on to key number 5, which is commitment and consistency. Committing yourself to repeating this process. Really, the process, it takes longer to talk about than it does to do it. Repeating the process only takes about 30 seconds to do. All right. So the old undesired habitual beliefs, thoughts, emotions, actions is the easy second nature choice. All right. The old way, the old habits. It's easy. You don't have to think about it. It's second nature. Your new desired habit of believing, thinking, feeling, acting takes deliberate choice. So when it comes to battling your inner imposter, here's some additional processes you can do to support the process. Step number 1, write down your imposter thoughts. Write them down. When they pop in your head, write them down. Have a little notebook in your pocket or something on your phone. When the imposter thoughts come in, just write them down. And you might be thinking, why do I need to write them down if I'm already thinking of them? Writing them down gets them out of your head and onto paper. And once it's there, it's so much easier to look at them. And likely you'll find that there are fewer thoughts that you imagined than you imagined. And some of them are completely untrue and ridiculous. And for those that still feel true, you get to use them in the next step that I'm going to share with you. And so step 2, turn your imposter thoughts into affirmations, right? Yeah, I know affirmations. Everybody is poo-pooing on affirmations, but I'm telling you, when they're used in the right way, they do work. All right. You know, it's not just like looking in the mirror and saying, I'm a great guy and people like me. All right. It's not just that. All right. So write down your thoughts. So I'm going to just give some here for an example. One might be, I don't belong here. All right. So I don't belong here becomes, I've earned my place here. All right. I continuously bring value, or simply I belong, or I value my presence here. All right. And so the second part of affirmations is to make sure that it is positive and in the present tense. Okay. So make sure it's positive. Don't use negative words in it. So for example, people won't notice that I don't belong here. All right. So if you notice there's some negative things, you're not trying to get rid of the negative, you're trying to create a new experience. So people know I belong here. All right. So that would be the better choice there. And so the next thing is to make it present tense. It's not I will feel this way, is I do feel this way, or I do think this way, or I do act this way. I act this way. All right. And keep in mind, it's okay if you don't quite believe it yet. Okay. It is okay if you don't quite believe it yet. The important thing is to turn your imposter thoughts into affirmations, even if you don't believe it yet. All right. And then number 3, you're going to change your physical state as you focus on the affirmation. And the easiest way to do this, easiest and fastest way, it perhaps won't last as long with each round that you do it, but you just need to do it more often. All right. Is to stand, open your eyes wide, and breathe in twice through your mouth, and then before and after your affirmation. I can do it. All right. It looks weird. It looks ridiculous. Okay. I know. But there is brain science behind this. Okay. Humans naturally do this breathing technique during breathing technique and eye widening during stressful situations. That's why those stressful situations, get seated as important or get tagged as important and something that the brain needs to go back to. All right. And so we're substituting scary negative things with affirmations. All right. Eyes wide, nostrils flaring, deep double inhale. All right. And so there is more science behind it because humans naturally do this also when they're crying or they're upset or they're stressed. All right. The double inhale is a physiologically calming process. We do it without even thinking about it. If you've cried, you've probably double inhaled. If you watch a baby, they double inhale. It's a self-soothing technique. All right. It's just what we do. You'll also see it in mammals as well, like pets, like cats, and might be harder to see in a cat, but you'll see it in dogs also. So also when we're experiencing traumatic events, big or small, humans tend to react with widening eyes and a sharp inhale. And this is a sign to the brain that what just happened is significant. Okay. It's hard and wet wired into us. So let's use it to our advantage. So the eyes wide, fast double inhale method takes less than a few seconds to do. It's fast, and you will need to keep doing it whenever you notice the imposter thought pop up. All right. Consistency is what's going to retrain your brain and your reticular activating system to focus on the new desired state. All right. And Andrew Huberman, he's a neurologist and also an instructor. I forget the university that he teaches and does research at, but he has been quoted saying vision and breathing are essentially levers or entry points to autonomic arousal because they are available for conscious control at any point. So we can't control like our heart rate, our breathing. We can control our eyes widening. What we point our attention to is something that we can control. And lastly, consider doing conscious connected breathing sessions, whether 15 minutes or an hour. Doing a longer session tends to yield more results faster for a longer period of time. And most people find that participating in breath coaching quiets their inner critic, quiets their inner imposter, and calms their nervous system, as well as a number of other benefits. So stay tuned. I'm going to be sharing more about how you can do that in the next day or so. And till then, try out these two processes. And you know what? It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. So I invite you to DM me. And if you want, we can have a no strings chat, just a chat, no sales. And you'll likely walk away with some personalized strategies. Okay. So thanks for listening and have a great day.